Hello, this is Tim Trelaw and I play the third Doctor Who for Big Finish Productions. You are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Larry, it's Fraser. And you use, they all say, who is Doctor Who? Where is he from?
What does he do? They wonder who is Doctor Who? So I ask you, who's Doctor Who?
And welcome back to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, the podcast that explores that long-time world of Doctor Who collecting, all kinds of merchandise, Doctor Who in general, and just a great time to discuss our favorite show. So, brought to you in part by Forbidden Planet and Bags Unlimited Incorporated. Please do visit our sponsors and give them your attention, give them your time, but most importantly, give them your money. They're wonderful companies. Forbidden Planet is right on our website at DoctorWhoCollectors.com, and Bags Unlimited, BagsUnlimited.com for all your protection needs. I am Larry Van Mersbergen, your host. I have been collecting Doctor Who since 1981, and if you did the math, that's 44 years. So I have a lot of experience to draw on, and that is super important to me here. Let's go on here. It's welcome to our 86th episode, celebrating Doctor Who collecting and a lot more here. So in case you're starting with this episode, I did open one of the first Doctor Who stores in Chicago that exclusively served the Doctor Who fans. It was back in 1984. The store was called Bundles from Britain, which celebrated its 40th anniversary last year. Although the company has been closed, it is no longer an active company. We still celebrate what it meant to Doctor Who fans in Chicago because it did enable other events to happen as a result of that company. And you can find out a little bit more on the last episode I did on Bundles from Britain, or you can also find us in a great book called Red, White, and Who, The Story of Doctor Who in America. We live on page 384. You can find a link to buy this book on our front page of the website. We do not make any money on it. It's just a resource. ATB Publishing publishes that book, and we've had the principal author on the program, Stephen Warren Hill. Great stuff. We are part of the Direction Point Doctor Who Podcast Network, a wonderful family of people dedicated to great Doctor Who podcasting. We're open to all new members. There is no cost to join. Just create some commercials for us, and we will grow your audience. That's how it works there. So that's what we're up to there. You can join the ranks of some wonderful people like Time Streams, Traveling the Vortex, Doctor Who Target Book Club, Doctor Who Literature, Police Box in a Junkyard. Wonderful stuff. Lots of stuff. Time Ram. I love Time Ram. So there you go. So for more information on all of those shows, and if you want to become part of our network, go to directionpoint.org. And, of course, speaking of links, I include these links on every episode in case you're starting off here. You don't have to start at episode 1. If you want to go back to learn about the Dalek book and all that, that's wonderful. But let's, listen to the ones you want to listen to. Do the category searches. If you want to find out more about something, just go to them. But I thank all my listeners for being here. Speaking of links, of course, two great resources that every collector should have is the timelash.com's TARDIS library. Sign up for a free account and keep track of all of your print media, your DVDs, your Blu-rays, your VHS tapes, your Betamax tapes, your cassette tapes, your albums. No magazines or anything else like that. So, but that's a pretty good place to do that. So we thank Mr. Dan O'Malley, who runs that site, to keep it free by using advertising. Let's say you need to do something a little bit more deep, like a deep dive into, I recently discovered that one of the Tom Baker money boxes, or I guess not a money box in this case, but a tin box was made with a hinged top. And I'm still looking into that. I saw a picture of it the other day, and I'm intrigued because those never came to the United States. I would have bought one. So that's the kind of stuff you got to look up at the Howe's Transcendental Toy Box. And that's doctorwhotoybox.co.uk. Of course, by Howe, we of course are referring to our wonderful good friend David J. Howe. He's written Collector's Corner for Doctor Who magazine. He's appeared on Blu-rays. Just amazing guy. So there you go. If you're looking for great Doctor Who items at pretty good prices, actually, you can go to DoctorWhoStore.com. It's in the name. That is Alien Entertainment, which actually kind of regenerated from Bundles from Britain, if you followed the story. It took a few leaps there, but it ended up there in the end. They always have sales on things. You can get some wonderful items there. If you live in the Chicago area or the west suburbs, you can select free pickup from the store. And while you're at the store, browse the incredible selection of science fiction items and Doctor Who. They're open Wednesday through Saturday at Lombard and also open in Logan Square. So for those hours, visit alienentertainment.com. You can also find some great Doctor Who items at Forbidden Planet. They're one of our sponsors, and you can visit our website, DoctorWhoCollectors.com, select the merchandise links, and select anything from Forbidden Planet, and you will check out at Forbidden Planet, and Forbidden Planet will give me a little bit of a commission on that sale. So that keeps our podcast on the air, and so far that's doing pretty well. So I thank all those people who are shopping on my store. And don't forget our eBay store. We are reorganizing our eBay store for the moment where we were trying to decide whether or not to keep it. But I think we're going to, because the costs of opening up an independent web store is a lot more than what eBay is charging me. So I think that's not a bad way to go. So we'll have some Target books up there again, of course. We're going to redo it a little bit in group format because it takes so much time to photograph each book. We're just going to put them up there, and if you want more information, contact me. I'll describe them as best I can, but so far my 100% feedback rating should show you that I'm not trying to get you. Okay? So just visit there, and you can take a look at all that great stuff. And next... coffee is the essence of life. Don't forget Who North America in Canby, Indiana, owned by my good friends Keith and Jenny. They don't forget them. They're at whona.com. That's WHONA.com. And of course, all of our friends at the Who Shop in London. Good old Alex out there. We love what you're doing. I recently I called them not too long ago, and actually, when I told them who I was, they said, "We love your show." I'm like, well, thank you. That's wonderful. So you can go at thewhoshop.com. That's thewhoshop.com. Of course, on our website, in addition to all the podcasts posted on our website, which some web providers and podcast providers only give you the last 10, we've got them all. We have the complete guide to Doctor Who classic hardcover books. It is one of the most definitive guides out there, and it's free. Also, we take very care to show very small photos of the books, so we're not trying to infringe on any artist's rights on covers. There have been books that came out that actually did that and didn't get any permission. So we're trying to operate. We do, of course, have full, permission from the Achilleos estate and Mr. Andrew Skilleter. We reached out to Mr. Alistair Pearson, but he doesn't want to be on the show, so I understand that completely. He's a good man. Don't get me wrong. We list a lot of reprints of those hardcovers that some people didn't know existed. I'm still after a couple of those reprints for my collection. So what's going on? Okay, so here we go. It's time. It's convention season once again. Thank you. And Chicago TARDIS has announced the first guests right out of the bat here. So we're getting, he comes to every convention. So Jason Haig-Ellery, the CEO and chief producer of Big Finish Productions, usually hangs out at Big Finish Island in the middle of the dealer's room. It's a huge area of just Big Finish audios. And he's there to answer questions or to help you in any way or to talk you into the latest series. He's also a very nice man. I love the guy. And second try on this one here, Annette Badlands. You might know her from Ted Lasso. She was the pub owner there, and I know a lot of people that really like her. Fortunately, she was unable to attend last year. It was a personal injury, I believe, that took place. So I'm glad she's okay and coming back. So more on that when guests are announced. You can tune in here, or even faster, you can go to chicagotardis.com and sign up for their email alerts. That's the best way to figure that out. The convention is going to be November 28th, 29th, and 30th at the Westin Hotel in Lombard, Illinois. Tickets are available at chicagotardis.com. You can follow them on all social media platforms. Just search for Chicago TARDIS. And if that all fails you, you can send an email to thedoctor@chicagotardis.com, and they will point you in the right direction. They're wonderful people there. Taylor Deathridge runs that, and she is a great lady. She really does a great job. Next, we've got Doctoberfest announced. It's called Regenerate, and it's set for Saturday, October 18th. And so far, I have tentatively going to be a guest once again. I'm hoping to be, my presentation this year is Doctor Who Toys and Games. So I'll be bringing a variety of those things to showcase and talk about the history of those things. And, of course, it'll be held at Who North America in Canby, Indiana. Hopefully the weather will be good, so we'll be out in the tent again. No other guests have been announced yet, and I'm still waiting for those announcements, so keep an eye on here. If you would like to have me at your convention, I've had some great conversations with Console Room, but they never returned the message. I've been to EgoCon. I've been to Consinity. I've been, to a few of those. And I'm more than happy. If it's within driving distance of at least, a day or so from Chicago, I'd love to go. Unfortunately, LI Who is a great offer, but that's quite a drive for taking anything with me, and it's also during the school year, so I can't do that. I'm a teacher by day job, so I'm sorry for the infrequent posting of these episodes, but it's been a busy season for me, so I do them when I can. Excellent. So if you want to make that happen and get me at your con, just contact me at drwhocollectorspodcast@gmail.com and put convention appearance in the subject line so it gets through. So that is it for that. Many rumors are abound. Of course, more rumors than I care to name, but mostly about second or third printing hardcover books by Alan Wingate or W.H. Allen. I'm always on the lookout of these concrete proof of their existence. So if you do have such a book, I need to see the spine photo, the inside cover, the inside photo that shows the copyright and printing. And the cover, of course, just to make sure it's the right book. So you can contact me with that. Now, we recently discovered that the third printing that was done of the Loch Ness Monster was probably a misprint, because no one can prove that a second edition was ever done. Not a single collector can come forward and say, I've got a second printing of that book. There's a first edition with a blue-colored spine and a third edition with a white-colored spine. And I think that's the second edition, and that's it. So unless somebody has something to prove out there, contact me and let's set the record straight. But that's based on information I have. You can contact me at drwhocollectorspodcast@gmail.com and put hardcover book proof in the subject line. Target books, those paperback books that are lining your shelves or sitting in boxes. This podcast, we like to buy Target books in lots. I try to add the ones I'm missing to the collection. I'm trying to get the most complete collection of Target books, all printings, all variations as possible. And then after that, we do resell them to raise money for the podcast. So we pay, usually if the books are in good shape, we'll pay at least maximum of $2.75 per book. So that's where we have to pay for. Some people are charging $10, $12 a book. We will not entertain those offers. If you want to get rid of them, we can talk. So again, contact us to that email and we'll get that going. Today's show, this is an exciting show. We're back to collection stories here. I'm going to talk to longtime collector Andy Price from the UK. He's been collecting Doctor Who since the late 60s, and you can listen to our conversation in just a few minutes. Let me thank our patrons here. If you'd like to see our exclusive video material, including special video content. The most popular video, of course, is my interview with Peter Purvis. You can subscribe at the $15 level, and you can find us at patreon.com/Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. You can also now find us on TikTok at Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. You can find us there pretty fast. I've been posting scenes from the Who room here and showing off some of the things that are here, and it's been getting a lot of hits, so I thank you for that, and we'll keep doing those because that seems to be going well. So if you'd like to support us, we're also a Podbean podcast. So you can support us there at drwhocollectors.podbean.com. Click the donate button, and you can support us there for any amount you choose. Our theme song is Who's Doctor Who by Barry Mason and Les Reed, performed by our friend Fraser Hines, who no doubt will be on the Chicago TARDIS guest list soon because, according to his contract, I think he has to appear at every Doctor Who convention. He's a good man. I love Fraser. I had a chance to interview Fraser and Wendy Padbury on the main stage at Chicago TARDIS last year, and that was a great conversation. We did reproduce that. We apologize for the audio quality. We're trying to best to figure that out. They will not let us record off the board, which would be better. It's just too complicated. We don't want to mess with their sound, but we're going to try something else this year to get that going. If you want to share this podcast with your friends, and I encourage you to do so, you can hear us anywhere you get them, including Apple Podcasts, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and a few others along the way. So if you just do a search on Google for the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, you'll find every place we're listed. We're also a Direction Point Network podcast. You can find us at directionpoint.org. So after the quick break here, we're going to have My Time, our main story, and of course, the most outrageous offer. Stay tuned.
Traveling the Vortex. Are you ready to embark on an epic journey through time and space? Join the thousands of Whovians around the world who've discovered Traveling the Vortex, the ultimate Doctor Who podcast for die-hard fans and curious newcomers alike.
Every week, we dive deep into the Whoniverse, discussing the episodes, theories, and hidden gems. We dissect the Doctor's adventures, share behind-the-scenes stories, and explore the legacy of this iconic show.
Traveling the Vortex brings fans together, fostering a global community of Whovians. Whether you're a fan of classic or new Who, there's something for everyone.
Join us on this incredible journey as we unravel the mysteries of time and space.
Don't miss out. Subscribe to Traveling the Vortex today on your favorite podcast platform.
Traveling the Vortex. Your ticket to adventure awaits.
Traveling the Vortex is a proud member of the Direction Point Podcast Network. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hi, I'm Juliet.
And I'm Nathan.
Experience Doctor Who from the very beginning through a classic fan's eyes.
And through the eyes of a new Who fan.
Reminisce and relive those classic moments with Nathan as he offers fun insight.
Or experience them for the first time with Juliet as she dwells on social issues, history, fashion, and the size of a flashlight.
We're the Time Streams Podcast.
Find us on Spotify, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
It's my time.
Hello, and now it's time for My Time. I had another topic planned, but then I got the news today when I was recording that my friend and a friend of Doctor Who, Simon Fisher Becker, passed away today. And I wanted to talk about him for a moment, if I could, because he was one of the nicest people I've ever met. Just, loved the energy of his fans. He loved coming to Chicago TARDIS. He did that a few times. He really enjoyed talking about his other projects. He was not only Dorian Maldivar in Doctor Who, but he was also in the first Harry Potter film as the Fat Friar Ghost, something that he's really proud of. But the word came from his husband that he passed away about 2 p.m. UK time. So my heart goes out to his family and to his other friends, and how sad it's hitting the Doctor Who community, especially those that worked with him. And I just, wanted to share my quick memories with him. I got to have breakfast with him at Chicago TARDIS, and we just had a great conversation about, art and music and all the things that,
that I like, and I also just said hey, it's great to know you. We became friends on social media. We communicated regularly. I haven't heard from him recently, but I don't know if he had been sick. It's okay. That's I'm not going to dwell on that. But I think we all should remember his great performance with the Matt Smith Doctor as Dorian Maldivar. Just a pretty that whole storyline that led to the Pandorica and all that. That was just pretty cool. But he was just a very, very kind man. And I'm sorry for his loss, and I'm sad to hear the news. So that is my time for today. Any other issues, we'll have to wait till the next podcast. But let's remember Simon Fisher Becker, who died today on March the 9th, 2025. So goodbye, my friend, and I hope to see you on the other side one day. And stay tuned for our main story. We'll be talking with collector Andy Price, and that'll be a joyful conversation. So that was already taped prior to this segment. So I hope, and then, by the way, before we get to that, I also wanted to apologize if there's any audio inconsistencies. My USB kept going in and out, so it kept switching between my good microphone and my built-in microphone, but I don't think anything was lost. But we'll see how that goes. But anyway, stay tuned for the main story.
The vervoids are probably the best dirty joke in Doctor Who.
They're hermaphroditic plants.
A lot of plants are.
So there you go. It's based on science.
No, they'll ship anything.
There are probably 11 and handle shippers out there. You just have to drill a hole where his mouth is, and you're all set.
He needs the room. I've seen it in pictures.
I'm not saying you're not a fan. I'm saying you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Doctor Who gives a drunken Doctor Who podcast for the end times.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors podcast. Keep collecting.
Up there is the scanner, those are the doors, that is a chair with a panda on it. Sheer poetry, dear boy.
And now it's time for the main story in the Doctor Who Collectors podcast. We love talking to collectors from all over the world with all kinds of experience, whether it be a new collector or someone who's been doing it since the show started. In this case, we have someone here who I've known for quite some time. And he's from the UK. And so please welcome to the program, Mr. Andy Price. Welcome, sir.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm great. Great to have you on the show. I don't know if you realize this. We've actually been in two projects together, even though we've never met.
Probably. Only two.
just two that I know of. First, there was the Fans of Who documentary.
Yep.
And I actually contributed to the Blu-ray set, the Sylvester McCoy collectors thing.
Yes,
you were in
up
that.
There.
And
yeah.
My American Spirit of Light photos were included.
Yeah.
So,
yep, I remember seeing those. I was jealous of those. I've got a few Spirit of Life posters, but of course, didn't get there.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was the thing of the 80s where we had all of that stuff was made right in my hometown. And I knew the CEO very well. He ran the biggest Doctor Who conventions and, of course, produced all this wonderful stuff with the full blessing of the BBC. Yeah. And none of it got exported.
Yeah. And I mean, there was some, I think I've got a Spirit of Life sonic screwdriver knocking around somewhere. Okay. And I've got sort of like the posters of all the Doctors. and sort of like the big poster. Obviously, it was very early Colin days.
Right.
When you look at the poster, well, yeah, his hair wasn't quite like that.
Yeah,
By the time he hit TV.
I don't know who the artist was. I know the signature's on there, and I haven't really done a
Yeah.
deep dive into those items, but I just remember, well, the sonic screwdriver was special to me because it was a gift from Mr. Norman Rubinstein, who was the head of
Yeah.
Spirit of Light at the time, because I owned a Doctor Who shop back in the 80s, and of course I was a dealer at the 85 TARDIS 22 convention in Chicago. And
Yeah.
I remember he said, "Oh, hey, hey, have one of these." And he gave me one, and it has like I think it has the red paint
Yeah.
at the top. So I was like, wow, this is great. So, of course the sound sounds like a dental drill, but but it was the first sonic screwdriver ever produced.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is great. I have the TARDIS key and all that. I had almost everything except for a couple of t-shirts and posters. And
Yeah.
I remember David J. Howe contacted me and said, "Hey, you've got all this stuff. Could you take some high-res photos? Because they have nothing over here." I said, "Sure."
Yeah.
So it was really nice to be invited. And of course, at the time I had no idea what it was for. They didn't tell me it was for that, but they did send me a comp copy of that Blu-ray, and I thought, "Oh, I'm on this."
Yeah.
So I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, there's Andy, and there's Jennifer, and
Yeah.
there's it was just great to see your area. Of course, I'm in my Who area here.
Yeah.
But what a great great connection across the sea here. So I'm gonna
Absolutely. Yeah.
go into some questions here. So when and how did you start collecting Doctor Who memorabilia?
I mean, I guess the first thing that I started collecting was my grandparents gave me a Mark's Bump and Go Dalek. Probably 1966, 65, 66. 'Cause I'm one of the old boys. I was there. I was
Right,
there
right.
on 11. I was there in November 1963, watching it on little crackly black and white TV in the corner,
Awesome.
hiding behind the sofa when the Daleks first appeared. in
Right,
full
right.
scale.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's what makes this interesting, because I know for from the USA side, we didn't get any Doctor Who merchandise here until 1981.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when it popped here, and then it really exploded in 85. But that's really cool that you go back that far. I do not have a Bump and Go Dalek. So I did have a Bump and Go Batmobile when I was a kid, because they made those over here.
Oh yeah, those were cool.
Yeah. I mean, that was the
Yeah, that's the- yeah.
that was the most awesome thing.
The proper Adam West, the proper Batman.
Oh,
yeah.
of course. I got to meet him many years ago. He was just the nicest
Yeah.
man, and totally
Yeah.
exhibits that whole when he was asked about the Michael Keaton movie, he goes, "They didn't even ask
Yeah.
me. I could have done it." he was just a ham, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So that I would think that was the first item. So how has your collection grown over the years? How did you did you just go willy-nilly, or did you have a focus or anything like that?
I suppose I collected little bits and pieces, sort of like through my childhood. You know, I had a few of the bits. Tom Baker, obviously, the world went crazy with Tom Baker merch, particularly over here. You know, I didn't have a lot of the 60s stuff back then. I really started sort of like collecting myself, I guess, in my teens, which would be John Pertwee, Tom, and then I started getting bits and pieces then. Since then, I started to go to auction. Well, a certain auction site that came online was very successful, but I think I've got everything I want off that now.
I know what you're talking about.
And what's really started to fascinate me, I guess, was sort of a bit later in life when I started working, because my job as a career was I was a graphic designer. I worked in publishing and in advertising. It's fascinating. There's not many brands you can watch that have, one brand has developed for 60 years, and you can go back and look at the marketing, the packaging, the technology that went into making the toys. You look at some of the 60s toys, like the Dalek Oracle and stuff like that, Battle of the Daleks, where you had Daleks going around on a board with a bit of, they had a bit of elastic band underneath it. You had Daleks that actually had records, vinyl records in the heads to speak. it's amazing when you look at the ingenuity that went into it prior to. I mean, like now it's just like we could just stick a microchip in it and let it go. And I found that fascinating. So it's almost, as well as it being a passion for Doctor Who, it's just my passion for the history of advertising and for print as well, sort of like became part of it. So that's when I started getting a lot of the old packaging for like the painting by numbers sets, the Dalek Oracle. Because I love the boxes, you know. I'm currently trying to replace all my TV 21 comics that went to the children next door to colour in from the hands of my mother when I went to university. You know, I came and said, "Where's my comics?" Oh, we've given to the children next door to colour in. So I used to remind her how much they're worth now.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's a small world because my day job, I'm a teacher. I teach graphic design at my high school.
Right.
So I love that stuff too, especially the early artwork. It's just it's amazing. I always think of the Muller books covers. Were just drawn so well, and going, you know, and the Armada cover and the all that. It's just amazing art, of course. And I show those to my students, and I said, hey, there were no computers yet, so they had to do all this by hand. And even going into the 70s and early 80s, they still had to do that. And it was just amazing to see the different things that came out. Now, when I was in my teens, I actually had that crazy idea to open a store, and it was successful, very successful, because now it's now Alien Entertainment, so which is a huge store here in Chicago, and my partner took it to, you know, new levels. But the nice thing about that was ordering stuff wholesale and being able to take out stuff that you wanted and then put the rest out for sale. It was really great. And that was kind of what sparked my my acquisition, as far as I'd like to get all the especially it was W.H. Allen Wingate hardcovers. My store became the sole distributor of those books because Lyle Stewart said nobody wanted them. So they dumped them on us, and we ended up making a boatload of money on them. It was because the convention say people didn't see those, so the bookstores weren't able to sell them. But Doctor Who fans were like, "Wow, I didn't know they made these." That was awesome. So let me ask this: do you have a holy grail item that means something you've wanted but not been able to find?
There's a Dalek blaster gun. I have seen it. I think I'd have to remortgage to buy it or sell the car.
I think I saw one for sale, and I was like, wow, that was the price of that thing. It was ridiculous. It was crazy. But but of course I've only seen one, so that that kind of goes.
That's it. There's not a lot of those around now. I mean, my grail was the Scorpion play-suit, which I've managed to get my hands on one of those. Because that was the grail item. Because obviously there's not a lot of those around, and I guess some things like I know you've got the Blu-ray, so you've seen the prototype Dalek, Seven's Dalek prototype. I mean, that was a real special find to get hold of that one, because obviously the program that it was on, Blue Peter, will mean nothing to you guys in the States, but it was a massive children's program over here on the BBC. And to actually have the Dalek that Stuart Evans took onto that program, that I remember watching prior to him launching the Seven's Dalek kits, is sort of like that's a major grail piece. But it wasn't one that I was in search of. It's just one that I was offered and thought, yes, I'll have that.
I've actually
couldn't say no.
Absolutely. I had the opportunity.
Lockdown was a very dangerous time to be bored.
I bet. Oh gosh, I've seen a lot of clips of Blue Peter, because I had to do. I had Peter Purvis on my program,
Yeah, of course, because Peter was on it. Yeah,
and he I asked him a little bit about that. Of course, I didn't know much because that was not our like not our thing over here. So we I found a few clips. He actually sent me a few too to look at, and it was really cool to see. And then I went on search for I tried to find a copy of Radio Times that he's on the cover of. He only did one, and you can't find it. It's not. No. But and he said he didn't even have one. But that was I think I remember seeing bits and pieces of Blue Peter over the years. They showed a clip at one of our conventions with Peter Davison and Patrick Troughton talking about the anniversary and 5 Doctors and all that. That was kind of John Nathan Turner had brought all that stuff over. But that's for it's interesting because I know for us, for American collectors, we have to import everything prior to 1980. Yeah. And it was, I did finally get a Berwick Dalek playsuit that's about 99% complete. I don't have an eye stock, but I made one. So and the one I made, I think everybody said that's better than the one that came with. So.
Yeah. I mean, my eye stock was what I think is one that I made. It's a straw and a ping pong ball.
Yeah, I think I got a dowel rod. I even put some rings on it, and I painted I got a wooden ball on the end of it. It actually looks pretty good. But I got the original gun stock. I've got the extender arm. I've got the suit is in good shape. There's only one little rip in it, and and of course the box too. So the box,
absolutely,
my best to preserve that. And I've been lucky. I mean, that certain auction site you mentioned, I'm not real big on that anymore. I'm more, connecting with folks and saying, hey, what,
that's it. Yeah.
You got a spare of this, or I'm looking for this. And, as I'm trying to complete the hardcovers, and that's being very, very difficult because certain books have reached over 1,000 pounds. And I'm like, really? Wow. And of course I go through I do track those things online, and I try to see, okay, where is this going? Where's this heading? And then every once in a while I get people that say, hey, I'll buy, if you buy this whole set that I've got here, I'll include this. I'm like, okay, because I just want that, and I'm happy to get the rest of that just to get that. And that's, and it's all about that, and people don't understand that collecting mindset. It's like, okay, I'm the prize, but sometimes you gotta, like a bulldozer, you gotta scoop a whole bunch up just to get that one little item.
Yeah, I've got boxes in the attic that I must dig out and put on that certain website one of these days. It's like, when I started collecting the VHSs, I started off with the VHS. I wanted to collect the ones that had the postcards of the covers in them, and that was a case of well, I'm selling 10. There's one in there that I want,
Yes,
and so now they all sit upstairs.
that was a wild thing for me, because in the early 90s, I had managed to get a hold of a multinational VCR. It was made by one company, so they could play PAL tapes. And so I thought, I'm going to get some PAL tapes. So I ordered the 5 Doctors, King's Demons from the Who shop in London. They sent it to me, and that included that vinyl postcard album.
Yeah,
with a couple. And I'm like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. But of course, you got the album. Now you got to get the postcards.
Got to get the postcards. So I've been collecting those as they come up. But then I got the American version of that, and it was just in a cardboard slipcase. And I said, "Wow, they really, made it less for us over here."
Yeah.
the tins that you guys got over there for stuff, and I'm like, no, we're not doing that here. Nobody's gonna no. Or the my favorite is the Blu-ray with the Cybermen head on it. That I've got one of those, but no, they wouldn't even think of doing that here. It's kind of like, wow, no, we're not doing that. I don't know who decides that, but it's probably like, no, we're not. Yeah, probably the same guy that decided not to publish the Beatles' first record.
Because
we're not doing that.
It'll never catch on. It'll never catch on.
This isn't going anywhere. No, forget it. No. that guy. Let's see. So I know this is a subjective question, but what do you believe to be the rarest or most valuable piece in your collection?
It would be the playsuit, the Scorpion playsuit.
Scorpion playsuit.
Simply because there's probably about 30. They pop up in attics every now and then, but there's still probably only under 20 of them still around. I mean, I've got a full set of the Hearts Plastic badges. You know, there was the big Dalek one, the little Dalek one, then there's the Menoptera and the Zarbi were the rarer ones. And I have got a complete set of those, which apparently there's not many of those around, which I didn't know. But I think the Scorpion's probably the rarest piece that I've got.
I understand the factory burned down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They came out just before Christmas. And there was sort of like the first lot went to the shops prior to Christmas, and then the factory burnt down and everything was lost. And also they were the expensive ones. They were like £20.
Yeah,
old British money, which was like only the rich kids up the road got hold of those. Everybody else had the Berwick's, which
I understand that
£1.10
completely.
shillings. Yeah.
I was not one of those rich kids growing up.
No,
So
no.
if somebody had a $20 bill, I was like, wow, I never saw one of those before. And
I remember my friends getting the Berwick suit for Christmas, and I was running around with a colander on my head and a whisk and a zinc plunger and a polka dot skirt of my mother's, whilst they had the proper Berwick suit.
Hey, whatever it takes, that's
it was simpler times then.
Absolutely. No, because when we first saw the Daleks, it was in the early 70s, 75, 76, Day of the Daleks on TV, and we were just hooked. And I remember it just happened to be a coincidence that Saturday on another channel, they did the Peter Cushing movie. So it was, wow. So the 70s for America kind of hit that. But of course, there were no Dalek toys, no Dalek suits, nothing came over here. So we all had to be, inventive with boxes and flashlights. And,
that's it.
Put that toilet plunger back. You can't use that. I'm like, come on. No, but that exactly. No, I completely know what that's about. So, I assume this is a yes, but have you connected with Doctor Who actors or creators during the course of collection?
Yeah, I mean, I know sort of like quite a few of the big collectors and a lot of the specialist dealers. I've met quite a few of the doctors through conventions as much as anything else.
Sure.
I mean, I remember that the first time I met a doctor was when they did the posters over there. Doctor Who: The Ultimate Adventure.
Oh yeah,
it was a stage show, limited run stage show in the UK, and I saw it with John Pertwee in. And it's like that. I remember, I mean, I was in my 30s. I went there, my eldest son had just been born, and I went to the cinema to see Doctor Who a few days later. And so just sitting there, and actually there was the Doctor in the flesh, real, just standing in front of me. And it was like, whoa, now you go along to these conventions, and, oh yeah, there's Sylvester, there's Colin, there's Peter,
Yeah, that's... For us over here, for me personally, my first doctor that I met was completely by accident. At 1984 at the big Chicago convention, I was waiting in the lobby and just looking out the window, and this person stood next to me and said, "Wow, what a beautiful city!" And I turned it was Patrick Troughton, and I was like, "Oh." Wow, hi. and he and I talked for about 5 minutes. I was maybe 15 years old at the time. And he said, well, how do you know me? My stuff's never aired here. I said, well, I've seen one story. I saw the Crotons. And he said, oh, yes, we're going to be showing that here. And so I went to see it, and he did a Q&A afterwards.
Yeah.
And so that was just, of course, I was in the front row for the famous water gun fight between Pertwee and Troughton. That was I talked to John Pertwee, I talked to Tom Baker. It was just really a great thing. And of course now every year I go to Chicago TARDIS, and since my friend and partner runs the show, I can go backstage and talk to anybody I want to. So
it's easy now, isn't
it? But another person I met in '84, I met Katie Manning, and she was so enamored with our conversation, she wrote down her home address and said, write to me. I said, okay. So I did. And then she wrote back. And eventually we kept this correspondence going for almost 40 years. So we actually speak every couple days on Twitter now. So, but just I'm like, she's like, oh yeah. And when she comes to Chicago, she's my best friend. So
Yeah, I'm always a little bit jaw dropped with Katie. She was a major crush.
oh yeah.
I think she, yeah. I mean, people say who was your favourite Doctor? I say John Pertwee, and I think no, it actually wasn't John Pertwee who was my favourite Doctor. It was Joe Grant.
Joe Grant. I got to interview her on the main stage, and she actually sat on my lap, and I thought, okay, I can cross that off. But she's still just so full of energy and still
she's
amazing
she's bonkers.
stories.
She's wonderful. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So let's see. What would you consider to be the most unusual Doctor Who item that you have?
I have a pair of cufflinks that John Pertwee made to give to, and the producer's name has just dropped out of my head because I'm getting old, but the guy behind the Inferno, which was when that wrapped, and it was the end of the first series of John Pertwee, he made a pair of cufflinks and gave them to the writer of Inferno.
Don Houghton, I think. Maybe.
No, I shall have to Google it. I have to Google it.
Yeah, I don't remember. No, maybe I'm wrong.
Inferno.
Who wrote Inferno? Sorry, folks, if you're listening, we have to fact check as we go. So,
yeah. My brain's completely gone, so I'm on Google.
Yep.
Douglas Camfield. That was it.
Okay.
Douglas Camfield.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he made these cufflinks for Douglas Camfield. Back in the 70s, you used to be over here. I don't know if you had them in the States. You used to be able to buy these little resin kits where you would put something in it and put resin on it, and you'd make a cufflink or a pendant or something like that. So Pertwee made a pair of cufflinks with his face on them, as only John Pertwee would, to give to Douglas Camfield at the wrap of the first season that he was in Doctor Who. And his wife, Sheila, she donated them to a sci-fi event where they were focusing on Camfield's work into an auction. They went into an auction, and I got them off the guy that won them in the auction. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm not sure where my camera is, but they are there.
That's all right. No, I believe you. That's.
But I think they're probably the most unusual that I've got. You know,
Okay.
not a massive toy or anything like that, but certainly an interesting piece, to say the least.
That would be. I don't think I have anything quite that unusual. The only thing that I have that's really limited was that Target book collection that they were going to try with the hardcover Web of Fear and a magazine.
Oh yeah.
And I got one of those in the mail because apparently my name came up, and
Right.
and I thought, oh, this is a good idea. And then I found out it was going to cost them a fortune to produce, and they said, "Nah, we're not going to do it." So I have one of those with the magazine. That's probably the only thing that's really unusual. I don't have any. I never got into the props or things like that. My friend Gene in 1985, he bought the green tuxedo that John wore.
Whoa, yeah.
And it was like, I think it was $600 or $700 at the time. Probably much.
Stick another zero on that now.
Yeah, he still has it. He's holding onto it as a retirement investment.
Yeah.
So,
that's why I keep telling everybody this stuff is my retirement plan.
oh yes, because when folks like you and me retire, and I've already had people approach me saying, "Is your will updated?" Yes, because I've had people in this room going, "Wow, let me know when you plan to get rid of anything." Well, eventually, but it's just a passion. As you know, it's a passion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talking about collecting, what big things have you noticed in the trends of Doctor Who collecting over the years since you started in the 70s and 80s?
I mean, the one thing that I have noticed is that as a collector, wait for it to fall out of favor, because suddenly you can afford everything. Wait for David Tennant to turn up on the 50th anniversary, and the prices went through the ceiling.
Yes, yes.
Whereas now, when it's not as popular as it was back then, and obviously prior to 2005, and nobody even thought about, there was only sort of like a bunch of aging children who were still hanging on to their youth, who were collecting these things. Nobody thought about it as a big business like it is now. And obviously, so, and as soon as, particularly Tennant, when Tennant came in, you couldn't move for orange and blue boxes.
Right.
I have to say, I have people that are horrified. I do not collect box stuff. I take my stuff out of a box and I put it on a shelf. It's a toy. I play with it. Toys are designed to play. I think it's quite sad, for the toy, that it doesn't get played with in a way. That's what they're there for. They're not to be put in the cotton wool. But that's probably saved me quite a lot of money over the years, that I'm not fussed about them coming in a box.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way, because sometimes, I recently got one of those Dalek Bagatelle games. It didn't have the box, but I was like, oh, and it was broken, but I was able to fix it, and it's kind of fun to play, actually.
Yeah. That was the round one, wasn't it?
Yeah, the big round one.
The big round one. Yeah, I got one of them, and then I saw what you did, because the back was coming off mine.
Yeah.
So I went and found a similar, a non-Doctor Who one, and did exactly the same as you did. Yeah. And
it worked fine, because they use one mold for those, so it was really easy. And I thought, I can get this thing working again. And and just stuff that comes. I don't care if it's beat up, or I don't care how bad it is. I mean, my hardcover Unearthly Child looks like it's run over by a truck. But I have one.
You have one, yeah.
and that's more important sometimes than going, oh, it's not in mint condition. I said, no, because you're not going to find one.
I mean, my Pertwee Pink has got the price cut off.
Yeah,
but I've got a Pertwee Pink.
Yeah, I got two of those. I have one that's signed by Nicholas Courtney, which is nice. But yeah, that one was hard to find. And some of those early annuals I remember seeing at the conventions in Chicago. They were asking for hundreds of dollars. But one of the funny stories, when I was a dealer, the guy next to me had a Palatoy talking Dalek, and that thing, and he had it out so you could play with it. And the news people came in, and they were interviewing him, and they wanted to end the segment with this Dalek saying "exterminate." And they did 4 takes, and that Dalek would just say, "What are your orders? What are your orders?" So that's what they had to use. So after the news crew packed up, I went over to the guy and said, "Hey, try it one more time." Hits it, "exterminate." I said, that Dalek was not going to perform on demand.
No.
But he was asking, in 1985, he was asking $100 for that. And now, of course, they go for almost 3 times that if they're...
Yeah, I mean, particularly the ones that have got the black dots. I mean, the blue dot ones aren't too bad, but the black dot ones are really difficult to find. I mean, I managed to find one probably a couple of years ago. I got one of those, but
I have 2 blue dot and 1 red. And I managed to, and I bought those broken. They were sold to me broken, and I repaired them, and now they talk and do all that great stuff. And I made quite a few K9s working again, because I bought a box of stuff and it included some of those records. And because that's the problem with the K9 toy, was you could take the record out, and of course it got lost or broken, and so I was able to repair 3 of them and give them to good homes. So like, oh, if you have the record, you're in good shape. I said, well, can you fix it? It doesn't work. I said, nope, no record. It'll never talk. So since you've given up the big online conglomerate, how do you find new pieces now without going to auction sites?
Because I suppose over the years you get to know people. So I there's people I know that are collectors. There's people that I know that I can say, look, if you come across XYZ, let me know, because I know you're in there. And I've become friends with a couple of guys that run some of the very sort of like very nice antiquarian toy shops, collectible vintage toy shops. There's one in Warwick City, the Metropolis Toys. It's not too far. It's not too far for me to drive up to, which again can be very bad for my bank account. I never go and see Chris and come back with as much money as I had when I went to see him. And there's things like, they still have the big toy fairs here. There was one a couple of weeks ago. And other auctioneers rather than that auction site.
Right.
There are auctioneers that do toy sales, and you can get some quite good deals on those as well. And then and looking around, I still live in hope of that car boot magic find, but it's never happened.
Yeah, sometimes you get
I
lucky.
find bits and pieces, but yeah, okay, yeah, it's another bronze Dalek. It's like, okay, one of these days I will go and find sort of a nursery Dalek or one of the sponge ones or something like that, but it's not happened yet.
Well, you never know. I mean, I had this was many years ago, but I went to an estate sale roughly a block away from my house, and this young woman was selling her granddad had passed away, and I was looking through a box, and there was all these yellow envelopes that said BBC Studios on it. And I said, "What's all this?" He goes, "Oh yeah, granddad was an electrical person for the BBC. He moved over here to live with us."
Yeah.
And so I went through them all, and I took one. I said, "I got to have this one. How much?" $1. $1. Here you go. Well, it contained the full shooting script for The City of Death. And also the letter inside that outlined his pension, a contract, a BBC interoffice envelope, and a note saying this envelope not to leave BBC Studios. But all 4 episodes of City of Death back to back with the electrical cues highlighted.
Yeah, it still happens. It can happen one day.
I never expected to find it here and a block away. I was like, that is so bizarre. And they said, yeah, he worked in England for all these years, and then he came over here. I'm like, and brought it all with him. Okay, that's you never know. And of course, this has been this next question here, big debate amongst a lot of collectors. Of course, I often think that everything prior to 2005 is one era, and then 2005 and on was the crazy era. But what do you think about this increasing commercialization of merchandise? And of course, what I mean is now people are lining up at these stores and clearing shelves, holding on to this stuff, and then releasing them at 5 times the price.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's terrible people are doing that, and I think the only way to stop it really is not to buy it, because they all go on to said conglomerate website, and so don't buy them, because they'll soon stop. They'll soon stop going to B&M and sweeping them all up just to get the money. I mean, I think that the interesting thing at the moment that I find particularly interesting is that there's nothing for the new Doctor. There's nothing for Shukti, apart from his Sonic. And if I thought, well, with Disney getting involved, you think, well, no, there's Disney stores in the town down the road, and I know what they're like. Nothing.
Nope.
And I think that's one of the things that I think, we could be heading for another break if we're not careful at the way things are going at the moment. Because if you think the Christmas when Tennant, you couldn't move for Doctor Who merchandise. It was everywhere. Last Christmas, nothing.
Yeah. That was interesting.
Just the Sonic, which I don't think is a Sonic. It looks like a mouse.
And I don't think it sold very well either. So it's interesting that I've been watching that carefully, because a lot of times I do give my advice to people and say, hey, if you can't find it there, don't pay 5 times the price. Just don't give them the money. It'll come down, and they'll have to get rid of it and go, we lost that out. But I wonder if there's been a shift in BBC merchandising to say, hey, let's wait and see here, and hold off, because I did see some prototypes for a Shooty action figure that were put out on some websites, and I never saw them again. But I'm hoping that they'll, with this next season, that they'll start pushing things out. I know the annual still comes out.
The annual
novelizations are still coming out, and they're still slowly but surely getting the Target books reprinted. It's just taking a lot of time. But yeah, I did notice that. But I do remember in 2005, of course, nothing in 2005 came out in the United States. We had nothing. Even though Doctor Who was broadcast here, we got nothing. Everything had to be imported. So I was like, huh. So I went to my friend Gene at Alien Entertainment. I said, can you get anything? He says, I have been trying. And he goes full blow. He'll say, I'll take the entire lot and I'll give you $30,000 cash and you sell to me. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. He goes, I don't have to finance this. I have it right here. It's ready to go. And they said, no. And I'm like, and so he's like, wow, I can't believe it. So he won't deal with those people. He stopped dealing with Magic the Gathering because those cards, they kept messing around with the price. He won't deal with certain action figure dealers because they won't sell to him directly. They have to go through another thing. And this is the same guy that bought a truckload of New Adventure books. When they were dumped in the late 90s, there was a semi-trailer full of them, and he bought them all with cash, had them hauled to his shop. That's why he's got them all. but that's, he's been trying desperate, and same thing with Who North America down in Indiana, which those are the two big Doctor Who stores in the United States. We have Alien Entertainment and the Who North America.
Yeah.
And personally, I buy from them, but I also buy a lot from the Who Shop of London. Alex has been great to me over the years, and so he actually, I called him up once and he said, hey, we love the podcast. I was like, oh, you listen, that's great, thank you. Oh, that's wonderful. And that was my whole point when I started the show. I thought somebody needs to talk about this. So I thought, okay, I'm not the expert, I'm not the go-to, I'm not even we even have the Guinness Book World Record holders not far from me. And they've been spending boatloads of money and working hard, and the hoops they had to jump through to get that was not even anything.
Oh, it's crazy. I know people that have thought about it. It actually crossed my mind. I thought I might have a go at it one year, and then you look into it. Oh no, it's just stop it. No. I just thought it'd be fun to appear in the Guinness World Records, even if it was just for a year. But,
absolutely.
I can't be bothered having to pull everything apart to count it now.
Yes, that was it. They said they had to take everything out of the bag and take pictures of the printing, because one Target novel would count as one item, but if you had a different printing, that's two items. And then the certain things were not included. I had them on my show. I don't know if you heard that episode. But, it was just, I thought, I don't have that kind of time. I thought about making a list of everything, and I was like, I don't even have a time to do that. And I do forget what I have sometimes.
I've got an Excel spreadsheet. That's just in case. That's just in case somebody has to figure out what's here when I'm no longer around.
I gotta start doing that too, because that's I'm looking around going, wow, I don't know, because I do have I did discover duplicates of things, and that's when I thought better pare it down. But speaking of paring down, but have you ever had to downsize part of your collection? And if you did, what did you decide to get rid of and what to keep?
Not had to. I did. Good. I sold a few bits last year. Simply because I decided I wanted to retire early, and by selling a few bits, I could retire 6 months early. So I thought, right, well, I always said it was my retirement plan. And what I sold, I managed to get hold of the artwork, the original artwork for the Weetabix cards, and I sold those. Okay. That was, I didn't want, it was a difficult decision. It was a hard decision, but I thought, no, what I'm really into is I'm into toys. I've got a few props. I've moved some of them on at times. I've had artwork, but what my passion is the toys. So the toys I parted with one toy once, and I still regret it. And it was they did an Antiques Roadshow special of Doctor Who toys, which is a TV show about. Yeah.
Yes.
And I had one of the Daleks that was in the animation at the start of the show. I got it from the animator. He put his name on the bottom of it, what it was for, what have you. That's the only toy I sold, and that was about 10 years ago, and I haven't sold a toy since.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. I look around the room. I have some toys. I found a TARDIS tuner a few years ago, but no box, but it still works. I mean, it's great. I've discovered, a few little Rollikins Daleks and things like that, a couple action figures that came in over the years, and I've got an inflatable remote control Dalek and things like that. I got a whole bunch of these radio command Daleks that Gene bought a warehouse full of them, and he goes, "All right, what do you want?" I'll take one of each. And he goes, he made me a great deal. And he said, don't use the batteries that come with it because they're old. But and then I did find at a record sale, the German print of Who's Doctor Who with James Fraser Hines. And I had Fraser sign it a few years ago, and he looked at it and went, "Where'd you get this?" I said, "This is the German print." He goes, "They made a German print?"
You didn't get any royalties for it. He'll be chasing them for the royalties.
It's like when I had my cassette Sirens of Time signed by Sylvester McCoy. He goes, "They made this into a cassette." I was like, "Actually, this came out first." He's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." I love showing. I love getting things signed by the doctors that were like, I was the only person to have a copy of that Blu-ray that we were on. Because it hadn't come out here, and of course the British edition is usually not sold here. And I brought it to him to have him and Sophie sign it, and he goes, Sophie, have you seen this yet? Because he had not seen it yet because he had been on the road. So it's probably sitting at my flat, but let me take a look at this. And he opened it, he held up the whole line and looked at this thing, and then he did a wonderful autograph on it. It was I love doing that. That's something that John Leeson signed my Talking K9, but at the time it wasn't talking because I didn't have a record. So he wrote "To Silent K9." I love that stuff. So do you have any experience on your part of bringing did you get anything signed that had a memorable story?
I suppose the one thing I got is I was a friend of mine works at some of the conventions, the sort of like the Comic-Con conventions that we have over here, and Sylvester was at one, and he was sort of like doing it in costume, but he didn't have an umbrella. So he's doing all the photo shoots, and he did it with my question mark umbrella.
Nice.
And then at the end of it, he signed the handle.
That's precious right there. Because every time
I had to get another one for when I cosplay him, because I can't use that umbrella anymore.
that one's now a museum piece now. So you gotta go with the,
that's in there. Yeah.
It's got to be the same feeling when Paul McCartney says, "I need the Hofner. It's in the Smithsonian," and they're like, "Oh, get out the white gloves. He wants to play it." So absolutely. No, that's one of the biggest things. I mean, I got a copy of the Radio Times with Roger Delgado on it, and I know Katie Manning just got a big edition of that for the Radio Times Gala, and I said, "Do you have an original one of those?" She goes, "No, I couldn't find one." I said, "Oh, well, next time I'll bring it to the convention. You can, take a look at it." And she, "Oh, I'd love that. That'd be great." I said, "I've got lots of those with your pictures in it, but you probably don't remember," because she said back then she never watched the show when she was filming it. But and then when I was interviewing her, she did tell the story about how she and John discovered Roger's passing, and it was the audience was like at the edge of their seats because I had brought up that she was the first companion to battle the Master. And that was, she said that they were driving down the street and they saw a newsstand and said, Doctor Who star dies in deadly crash. And John's first reaction was, well, it's not me. So they pulled over and they looked and they said, John, and she said, John's jaw literally hit the floor when he read it was his friend Roger. And he put the newspaper down and walked away for a minute. And Katie just said, I just started to cry because we just talked to him. And it was a pretty personal story. And I thought, wow, I'm glad you're telling this, because I don't think I ever remember hearing this story anywhere else. But that's one of the great things about bringing, when you bring something to a celebrity and they go, wow, I don't know about this, or I haven't seen. I mean, this is another thing entirely, but I was at a convention with Keith Barnfather, and I had a copy of Wartime that was released on VHS here by a different company that he worked with. And I said, hey, would you sign this? He goes, I don't think I've seen this in 40 years. This is awesome. I said, I bought it when it came out. And it was this place in Detroit, Michigan. It had John Levine and Michael Wisher in it. I thought, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I often ask this of veteran collectors. What advice would you give to a person who's just starting out collecting Doctor Who?
Don't spend too much, but you will.
Keep a budget. I always say that. Keep a budget. Keep a focus.
How many Daleks is too many Daleks? The answer to that is one more.
If my girlfriend said she'd leave if I bought one more Dalek, and I do miss her.
Yeah. We had a roommate agreement when we moved into this house, which was that I had my room, but that now's it's crept out, and every now and then I get told off. I get, how long's there been a Dalek up on that shelf?
When
it's
did
always
that
been
get
there, Dib.
I know this is not a big room, as you can see. I don't know if you can see me or not, but it's not a big room. But I have a lot of stuff that's outside because I can't fit, like the play suit I wanted in a better place, and I've got the games, like I've got 3 War of the Daleks games. They're all out in a different place. And some of the other things I put in, like some of the play sets and things I have in protective plastic boxes, and I couldn't fit those all in here. So I thought, and I've only got so much wall space, and I've literally done as much, on one wall here, this whole lining of the wall is Target books, over 400 Target books. And I thought, wow, this is, it is hard to keep things like going, but whenever I do a collecting panel, I always say, what do you how did you start? I said, well, I started with 3 things. I went to a comic store and I bought Doctor Who Monthly number 70 with Peter Davison on the cover, and I had no idea who he was because he hadn't aired here. And then I bought a copy of Day of the Daleks in Target book because that was my favorite story from the Pertwee era. And that was the one that had the typo on the last page. .core. I still bring that up because they didn't fix it till the 8th printing. But I had that, and then I thought, okay, that was change back for my 10. That was about it. And then I met my mother had dropped me off there, and I met her at the grocery store. And when we checked out, there were more Doctor Who books in the checkout. These were the Pinnacle paperbacks.
Oh yeah.
That I had no idea were printed in the United States at the time, but they also had a little free book. It said, free, take one sample of Doctor Who and the Daleks and the Day of the Daleks, the Doomsday Weapon. And I said, can I take some of these? And my mom said, you could have 2. So I took 2, and I've still got the 2. But I had no, I thought that's where I started. And then of course that local store just had one little wall of Doctor Who, and the Target books were expensive back then. It was like $4 for a Target book. That was before they had a distributor. They got them all imported, paid all that money. But that's, start small. And then I often remind people I've been doing this for 43 years. So this didn't happen overnight. I would go bankrupt if I did, but I'm also very careful. I don't let, if I'm bidding on something, like I was bidding on Loch Ness Monster hardcover not long ago. And when it hit £1,000, I said, I'm out. I'm not going to do that. That's almost $1,200 US. And I said, that's my mortgage. So that's not happening. And I told the young folks, I said, set a limit. If you're spending $20 at a time, don't spend 21.
And I think the thing to remember as well is you might want to sell it on. So try and particularly these days, is get an idea of what something's worth.
Yes. Do your
See
research.
what other people. Yeah, do your research. If you go, particularly if you want to sort of like start going back to sort of like 80s, 70s, 60s stuff, find out what use the internet and find out what it's worth. Because the worst thing to do is it's great you've got the stuff, but then what happens if you want to move it on? What happens if you change your mind and you've overspent and
right.
And it's just and start small until you can get a big room or build a man shed, and then you're away.
This is the room I'm allowed to keep my stuff in. So
I've got the smallest room in the house. I don't know how that worked out.
It's not. I mean, I'm in the basement of my house. I've got this room here, and I've been creative with all the shelving and what's available within reach, whatever I need here. It's really kind of. I will show you this. This picture is one of my favorite pictures. I don't know if you can see it properly, but this is Fraser Hines.
Yeah, I see it's Fraser. Yeah,
signing a copy of City of Death on LP, which was a promo item. Apparently, he had something to do with it. I think he did a voice or something, and he was giving it to me. So David Howe took this picture of him signing it, and I have the album.
Yeah.
And another Fraser story. I had found a guy. There was a guy in England who was selling a copy of the Gunfighters, but it was an unbound proof.
Right.
And it was signed by Donald Cotton, and the guy would not ship it to me here. He says, "No, I've had bad experiences shipping to the United States." I said, so I contacted David Howe and I said, "David, could you help me out here?" He goes, "Yeah, absolutely." So he sent it to him and he goes, "Well, I'll just pay you to ship it to me." He goes, "I'll do you one better." Because Fraser was coming to my convention. So he gave it to Fraser. So Fraser became my mule. So I met Fraser at breakfast and he goes, "Open that up. I want to see what's in it." So I did. And he goes, "Oh, that's pretty neat." I'm like, he'd never seen a proof before. And I was like, "Oh, because why would he?" But he was like, "Oh, this is really kind of cool." And it's signed by Donald Cotton. So I thought, that's pretty unique to me. I try to find the unique, the unusual, the weird. I'm still looking for a Dalek weather vane. I've seen pictures of those, and I'm like, I'm sure they're fan made, but I don't care. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I've got a concrete Dalek out in the garden.
Oh, nice.
Sort of like a little one, sort of like a garden gnome Dalek. I'm dreading. Telos Publishing are about to produce a book called The Evolution of the Dalek Toy.
Yes.
That could be very dangerous because I'm going to find lots of gaps that I want to fill.
Yeah, I told David I got to get him back on the show when that one comes out because he's great to, because he's the guy that debunked the whole story of with books that are you're familiar with Abe Books.
Yeah.
Where somebody will sell a book for £500 and then the same book is being offered for less, but the person A doesn't have the book. They're hoping you'll buy it from them and they'll buy it from them and sell it to you for more money. And I said, well, that makes sense because some of these bookstores don't exist. I was looking into a whole bunch of those bookstores and I said, "Oh, okay, no, they don't exist. It's the same picture, the same book." And I thought, so that you got to be careful when you're looking around. And I would say, hey, don't spend $9,000 on this book because you can get it for $2.
Because you scroll down the page and go, but that's exactly the same picture.
I've got one within reach here. This little book here caused a lot of stir. And it's a limited edition. I know this one only 100 copies and it is signed. But I paid $5 for this book. But there was a copy being sold for 1,000 because they said only 100 were made. I said, yeah, but that means there are at least 100 out there. Or the odd hardcover that comes in. There's a guy on that other auction site selling an ex-library copy of Masque of Mandragora, and he's asking $600 for it. And he offered it to me and I said, no, because I have a copy and I have a nice copy and I paid $100 for it. So I think you need to do your research. but that's how that goes. I
Yeah,
think
I mean, some of the day polls as well got a bit like that. There were people coming out with these day polls saying, "Oh, we've got the Christmas day poll, which is like a really rare one," or they've got the American, the red, white, and blue day poll Dalek, and you start looking at how come you sold that as a one-off, and then 2 weeks later, it's a different name person selling it, but I recognise that skirting board and carpet that it's sitting on for the photograph.
Nope, it's the number one thing. I mean, we've seen this. I've seen it many times where I'll look at the picture and go, "Hey, I have this picture," because sometimes I'll take pictures off of eBay sites for reference, and I'm like, "Wait, I've seen that before," and I'm like, I look through my archive here. I'm like, "Yep, there it is." So this is.
Oh yeah, I had one on eBay, on that auction site, because I've got a full size, the first Cushing film Red Dalek.
Yeah.
So a full size model of it, and I saw someone was selling one on eBay, and I thought that photo's off my Facebook profile.
So
that's my Dalek,
so
and it's a picture I put on my Facebook profile when I got the Dalek. It's outside my house, and you're selling it.
That's a little suspicious. I'm like, how is that possible? Yeah, I do. That's funny when you see your own pictures being used. Now, I know I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. So, which era of Doctor Who has the most nostalgia for you?
The early days. Obviously. I was a teenager in the 1970s, so I was growing up in the 70s. So that's why, I say, it's John Pertwee, it's Katie, it's Tom, because those were the years I was growing up in. My favourite, the story that probably had the most impact for me was Dalek Invasion Earth, the original one, with William Hartnell, because that one really made the Daleks scary, because for me they did, because they were in London. Now, I'd seen all these, but I was living up in Lancashire, in the far north of England, sort of like 200-300 miles away from London. But on the news, you saw places like Trafalgar Square, you saw places like the Houses of Parliament, and there were Daleks walking up and down in front of them, and it suddenly became very real. And I think that's probably the one that scared me the most at the time. And then we wound up, I remember being at school, I was sort of like 5-6 years old at school, and we decided there were Daleks in the boys' toilet that was at the bottom of the playground. They were hiding there, and none of us would go to the loo. And that was a because that sort of suddenly, I mean, even though it was still that little black and white telly in the corner, it became real. Because they were here, that was my country. They were there. I know where that is.
That was a brilliant move on the producers there to do that story, because that solidified the program, and made them scary. There's also a scene in the Dalek Invasion Earth where they execute somebody. They get around and they kill this guy because he's trying to escape, and I'm like, and they also do that brilliantly in the Peter Cushing film. Where they use fire extinguisher effects, I know, but still, they all get on him and they totally like, oh my gosh, these guys are evil. They don't care. It's and I didn't get to see that original Dalek Invasion of Earth until much later. I think it was the early 90s when we got the William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton package. And I was just, because even the pirated stuff that came over, we didn't get that story. But that was a really nice story to see. And I'm glad I got to see it later.
I think it's one of my favorite bits is I've got an actual BBC press photo of the Daleks coming over. It's there in front of me, coming over Westminster Bridge.
Oh yeah, famous photo. Yeah,
and which has actually got the silhouette of the photographer in the bottom corner taking the photograph of it. And this one is actually got a BBC press office sticker on the back of it, so I know it is from the original shoot. But I think the funniest thing is that down in the corner is a silhouette of a guy holding the camera.
I love looking for that sometimes, because sometimes you'll see a scene or something where there's a microphone just out of reach there, and that's one thing I loved about John Walsh's book, the Doctor Who in the Films, because he's got these photos blasted back, and you could see all the cabling and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. And then when I talked to Peter Purvis, and I asked him, of course, how was it acting with Daleks, and he said it was terrible because there's 5 feet of studio space, and those things take up 3 feet. So, and during rehearsal, I guess the Dalek actors don't wear the top half of the Dalek.
No.
So he's like, they're not intimidating at all. It's just a guy on a little tricycle, running around.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that was a unique perspective. Of course, and I'm going to turn the last part of this here to the future. So, with digital media becoming more popular, what do you think that actual physical collecting will decline in time?
I don't know. I mean, I think because I do worry that it's a generational thing, and that it is. We are all of a certain age as collectors, and we know what will happen in the future because kids don't get toys these days. Kids, they play on a monitor.
Yeah.
So it's quite conceivable there will be that you won't get the physical toys anymore. Just hope somebody still wants to buy all my lot when that time comes.
Yeah, I always think of things like this. The games and Xbox and and things like that. That's because I teach teenagers myself, and I've noticed just from going to conventions, and I'll see some of the kids, and they kind of glaze over the physical stuff. And it's more, every once in a while, they're like, oh, the Parliament Dalek set, that kind of thing. Of course, they take it out and play with it, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's like, but a lot of the people that are making the purchases are people my age or your age, we're all kind of like because that was our background. When we were kids, it was physical toys because we didn't have all that game stuff. That didn't happen. So I agree. That's something that I thought, as I look at that Doctor Who merchandise guide, and it alerts me every day when it changes, I'm seeing less and less coming out. And as we talked about earlier about, nothing much with Shooty, but hopefully that trend will change.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that will inspire younger people to start collecting Doctor Who. I know it's been, like you mentioned, Antiques Roadshow. I was approached by a program called Collector's Call here in Chicago, and they turned me down because the person there had never heard of Doctor Who. And this was actually a couple of years back during the 60th anniversary. And I said, really? I said, you should Google this and take a look. And they never got back to me. And I think much later, somebody else got back to me and said, well, we probably missed the boat on that one. I'm sorry, but instead they did some guy with a collection of motorcycles or a collection of, it's like, that's, obviously probably not great television, but that's, as far as inspiring other people. And I do have a lot of younger listeners to this program. So that's one reason I keep doing the show. And a lot of people will write back and say, hey, oh, that was great. Or I had a new listener just contact me the other day and saying, wow, this is a great listen. Thank you so much. And I'm like, I'm trying to just.
I mean, it is, you get that at times, and it's really gratifying, isn't it? I know there was a young lad, he just popped on Facebook some time ago, interested in buying a Dalek. And I had a full-size Dalek, and I had a full-size Dalek set that I'd bought, and I had great plans to sort of like do a lot of work to it. It was a bit sad. It needed some tender loving care, and I was going to do it. And then I've said, come on, Andy, be honest with yourself. You're never going to do this. And so I answered this kid and said, I got this. If you want it, you can come and have a look at it. And we could talk a price on it. And he's now got 2 or 3 full-size Daleks. He's done it up really nicely, and he's got another, and he's organising a little convention near where he lives. And, and he's had a few things going on, and it's somebody younger coming in and wanting to do it, which is great. I think it has to be there. You have to get the passion when you're young, I think, and so what happened with Doctor Who back in the 70s and the 80s? It caught people's. The Daleks were a piece of design genius. They caught people's imagination, and that's why they should appear very soon before to just because that's what solidifies it in people's heads.
I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, I read something. Somebody did sort of like a psychological study of why they've been so successful, and apparently, what they came to the conclusion is because they're 5'3", or the original ones were 5'3", and the actors were all taller. Mm-hmm. So whenever the Dalek had to talk to somebody, the eye stalk went up. And kids related to them because they were like frustrated, angry children talking to adults. I want to try and get my point across, and you don't understand what I'm trying to say. And that's why we related to them. And that grabbing that imagination when you're young means it carries on to when you're an adult and you get into becoming a collector. But it has to grab it, and there has to be that certain piece of magic to grab a younger person's attention for it to then carry on into adulthood. And that's where I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about what's going on with Doctor Who at the moment, and it's very difficult for you. I mean, it's going 60 years to come up with new baddies all the time that are going to grab it. It can't be that easy, you know. But it'd be interesting to see what happens. Interesting what happens in the next series. And
I think we'll get there.
Hopefully there'll be something I can buy to put in the collections, because at least I can say I've completed it.
Yes.
I have got something from every Doctor.
Of course, back in 1989, I thought I had.
Yes.
But there you go.
Yeah.
Everybody, my guest today is Mr. Andy Price, collector from the UK, who's been a fan of Doctor Who since the very beginning. Andy, thank you for being on the program today.
Lovely to be here. Nice to meet you. Nice to chat.
Thank you. And listeners, please stay tuned for the most outrageous offer.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club Podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast on the Direction Point Podcast Network. Keep collecting.
All my travellings throughout the universe, I have battled against evil, against power-mad conspirators. I should have stayed here. The oldest civilization. Decadent, degenerate, and rotten to the core. Power-mad conspirators, Daleks, Sontarans, Cybermen. They're still in the nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really corrupt.
And now it's time for the most outrageous offer. This is a segment that focuses on an item or a Doctor Who item or a related item that appears to be priced way above where it's supposed to be. Now, today, this could cause some controversy, but I'm going to go for it here because this is crazy. It's a hardcover book, Doctor Who and the Masque of Mandragora, ex-library book. And their asking price is 500 British pounds or $648 approximately. So it says that the dust jacket has wear. The first page has been torn off. Writing inside the book, pages seem to be okay condition for its age. It was part of an antique collector's collection. Now, he did send me an offer because I do watch these books on eBay just to keep track of it. And the offer was for 450 pounds, which is still crazy. Now, I have a decent copy of this book, and I can tell you I paid under $100 for it a year ago. So I know if you do a search on the sold history of this book, it doesn't come anywhere near 500 pounds. That's just crazy. And I wrote him back and I said, look, do your research, check the sold prices on this. It's not going to go for that. And it doesn't have a lot of, let's see, it's 2 people watching it, myself and somebody else. So I don't think it's going to sell. I'm going to put the link up, but I'm also taking a screenshot of the page in case the seller takes it down or moves it or relists it at some point. So again, with hardcover books, and I go over this pretty frequently, especially on my episodes where I cover the hardcovers, and the prices could fluctuate. I mean, we've seen some crazy prices lately for first editions of Loch Ness Monster or Planet of the Daleks non-library. This is an ex-library copy with torn pages and writing. I wouldn't sell it for more than $50 myself if I had one, and I got it for less than that. Like I said, my copy's in better shape, and I paid less. So I would say this qualifies as a most outrageous offer. So I found this one on my own, so I can't give anybody credit for it. Every once in a while that happens, and I thought, this might be a good one to put up for today. So that's it. If you are out there trolling the world of eBay or looking at different places that sell Doctor Who books like this, and you find one that's a little bit out of the range, let us know. Give us an email at drwhocollectorspodcast@gmail.com, and I will look into it. And I'll certainly give it the full examination. Some items might not qualify because of the fact that it might be the only one for sale. But usually my litmus test here, so to speak, is that if I can find a copy for less money. I haven't been able to find another copy of Masque of Mandragora, but if you wait, one will pop up because they do pop up from time to time. So anyway, that's that. That wraps up the most outrageous offer, and that wraps up the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. One more time, I want to thank my very special guest, Mr. Andy Price. Great guy. And we had a great conversation about collecting and collections, and it's just a wonderful time. If you'd like to join us for that, you know how to get in touch with us. You can find us online at drwhocollectors.com, and of course, this podcast is found almost anywhere you get your podcasts. So, until then, keep collecting.
A Doctor Who Podcast Network.